There we are. Cool. So, SEO, search engine optimization. I mentioned a couple of times yesterday that I am an SEO nerd. I love search. I love thinking about why people are searching for certain things, what your site needs to do to show up for those things. I love picking the brain of really, really clever SEOs. So just for full context, I'm an SEO strategist, but I'm not an implementer. So I need a team of people, devs, copywriters. I do write copy as well, but copywriters, link builders, outreach, technical, to help me do my thing. But what I also get to do is I get to speak to some of the world's best SEOs, which I'll share a lot of the stuff that they've shared with me for you guys to start implementing or thinking about for your own SEO teams. So just a show of hands again, for the people who have SEO somewhere in their remit, do you have hands up if your team is 100% in-house, your SEO team? Anyone? A couple? And then if you've got a mix of in-house and agency, yeah, it's pretty similar, about 50-50 split. So there's some interesting stuff in here around the types of people to look for, but you can use this stuff for your in-house team. You can talk to your agency about it. You'll get a copy of this presentation afterwards, and you can always hit me up and go, what exactly did you mean by tip 23 where it said X? And I'm happy to give you the answer. So this presentation is split into two. SEO success is more the strategy side, and then we've got the 22 tactical tips for you guys to take back to your teams. So what I just mentioned then. First, learning from the world's best SEO practitioners, then 22 tips. This is me. So you heard my voice a lot yesterday. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in marketing for 20 years. I dabbled in digital marketing. As I mentioned yesterday, you might have heard I was paying for search ads, 6 cents a click in 2002, 2003, buying banner ads and the like. But I didn't go full knee deep into digital marketing until about 2012. Last 10 years, that's been my bread and butter. I'm a multiple-time founder. I'm founder of this agency here in the US, Impressive. Impressive, we've got about 130 odd staff between Australia, the US, and that's our main offices, and then we've got a bunch sort of around the world. I'm also host of a podcast series, which is where I get a lot of my SEO nuggets of wisdom, which I'm going to share with you today. That podcast is called SEO Success Stories. So basically, every 2 weeks, I interview some of the world's foremost SEO practitioners, people actually on the tools. So from brands like IHOP, JLL, Virgin, Vodafone, Applebee's, to name a few. So I'm literally speaking to the people who are in charge of their SEO. So if you think about sometime, when next time you do a search for, I don't know, last night with my family, I did a bunch of searches around family restaurant near me, cost-effective family restaurant near me, those types of searches. Applebee's came up more than once. I've interviewed the guy about exactly how does he do that? What is he doing for local search and the like? JLL are one of the world's largest, or they're the second or third world's largest commercial real estate firm. IHOP, you all know, Virgin. So some really clever people who are actually doing the SEO for these businesses. But on top of that, we also interview some of the smartest SEOs and thought leaders and educators. So Ahrefs, SEMrush, for anyone here who's got SEO in their remit, you would be in those programs, at least once a week. The Recipe for SEO Success, SEO MBA. There's a guy who's written a book called Product-Led SEO. If you have any interest in SEO, you should get that book. He's a really clever guy, Eli Schwartz, Shopify. So basically, I just get to pick the brains of people much, much smarter than I and find out why they do what they do and how they get the results they get across brand side, across educators, across tech platforms. Good news for you guys is I've synthesized a lot of those learnings into today's presentation. From a starting point, we're going to talk strategy. And then I'm going to get into the tactics because there's a lot of tactics that I have to get through in 44 minutes and 52 seconds. So we're going to get there. But we talk strategy, we talk tactics. From a strategic perspective, there's a common theme. I'm going to play a couple of videos and we'll see if you guys can pick up. Actually, I think I put this slide in the wrong order because the next slide is going to tell you what that theme is. There it is. Soft skills are the separator. So, for those that have worked with SEOs before, I don't know about you guys, but for me, previously, the absolute gun SEOs that I've worked with, or that I thought were gun SEOs, were the ones who were introverted, They love to have their headphones on in the office and not talk to anyone. They're knee deep in code, just plugging away at what they do, which is great, and they're very, very good at what they do. What I found from interviewing these SEOs and these thought leaders and these practitioners and educators is that the absolute best are good at getting buy-in. Because as an SEO, quite often, what your job is to convince people from other teams to do what you want them to do. If you've got, how well do you think an introverted person who's just knee-deep in code, who doesn't want to talk to anyone, is going to go talking to a dev team or a content team or a product team about all the different things that come into improving your SEO? On a scale of 1 to 10, how good is that person at convincing people? 1, 2, 3, 4, they're low. The best SEOs, they know how to manage stakeholders. They know how to get buy-in. If they're not incredible soft-skilled people themselves, they know how to find a champion within the business who is, and to communicate their wins to that one person, have that one person deliver it to the rest of the business, which then helps them when they are trying to get the dev team to do that little fix on a page because it's loading slowly. When they're trying to present to the content team about this particular content pillar that everyone else is ranking for, and I know you've got a lot on your plate, but if we could just get some content around this, and the dev team to build the pages, and the technical team to go through and make sure the dev team's done it well, then, as Dale said yesterday, maybe we'll get some wins, because SEO is always, it depends. You do a bunch of things that you hope head in the right direction. A couple of videos now. What do you feel is the number one biggest challenge that SEOs face in 2021?
I would actually say this is a challenge that has been around for a very long time. It's highlighting the importance of SEO to clients. Forget about Google algorithms and everything. I think that's all secondary. The primary thing is, how do you get your business to understand the role of SEO in your complete marketing funnel? Once you're able to do that, then things automatically progress. The clients understand the importance of SEO, and that's how you go through. So the challenge here is, how do you put through a narrative that will help clients understand that this is where SEO will contribute to my marketing funnel?
Delivering a narrative. Again, soft skills. How do you deliver that narrative? You need to be able to communicate with people. So Mateen is the global head of SEO for Virgin Megastore. So he's helped deliver amazing SEO success for individual stores for Virgin across the world. Sorry guys, 2 seconds. Hopefully this is the next one. We'll see. What do you feel is the number one challenge facing SEOs in 2022? Go.
I think it's the same thing that's been facing them for a long time, that no one trusts them at all, and that they think they're dodgy. So I think that's the number one problem, building credibility and trust with customers.
Again, we are, as SEOs, there's that kind of, there's been a history in SEO of, let's just tell them it's really complicated, let's just use lots of buzzwords, let's really try to scare them into just letting us do our job and not explaining the stuff that we're doing. What's happened over time is that trust has been eroded. Lots of businesses, lots of marketing departments just don't want to deal with SEOs. So building that trust. What do you feel is the number one challenge facing SEOs in 2022? Go.
I think it's the same thing that's been facing them.
So building that trust is super important, can only be done through soft skills. Kate Toon runs a school called The Recipe for SEO Success. If you'd like to get a better understanding of what your content writers are doing and how they can write better content, I'd recommend doing that course, The Recipe for SEO Success. I'm always a proponent of, if you explain this stuff in more detail, it's going to help you get more budget to get the resources, to get the time, to get what you need internally. So I'll share everything. What is the number one challenge facing SEOs in 2022?
I love that question. Getting things done. I've been, in doing SEO probably now 15, 16 years. We are advisors. We are not doers. There are a few of us that can program. There are a few of us that can write content, but ultimately we're coming up with strategies and plans, and we can't get things done. And I'd say, like, whether you're in-house or a consultant or a blogger, anything you are, making things happen. You need people around you. And I think the biggest challenge is always, you've got a great plan. How do you get that plan to happen in a reasonable amount of time? That, I think, is the biggest challenge, getting things done, making things happen.
What is the number one challenge facing SEOs in 20? Cool. Eli Schwartz, author of the book Product-Led SEO. Again, getting things done, getting other people to do stuff. Soft skills, soft skills, soft skills. You probably picked up, I ask this question every episode. And it's literally like, I think about 70% of the time they've come back with the same thing. It's so important. And it's not something that we look at when we're hiring SEOs. You're going to hire an SEO agency and you need them to be able to tell your team to get stuff done. This is such an important thing. So something to think about. I think there's one more. What do you think is the biggest challenge, the number one challenge facing SEOs in 2022?
Such a good question. There's so many ones that I can think of just from like a ranking perspective. But if I had to put my finger on the number one challenge that the SEOs are going to have in 2022 is really going to be about proving the value of the ROI of SEO. So, we're still in this time of COVID where, things are still uncertain. It's putting a lot of emphasis on what the power of external search can do. And so it takes a lot of multiple different strategies in order to really move the needle to become number one or to get the highest rankings you can on Google. And so being able to prove the value of those strategies, I think are going to be really important this year.
Oh, there we are. Cool. Okay, so you get it. Soft skills, really important. That was Leanne Follis. She's Global Head of SEO for JLL. Tactics are important as well. So just one last video and then we'll get into the actual tactics that we're talking about for you guys, actionable for your site. What is the number one biggest challenge that SEOs face in 2022? Go.
Differentiating yourself from what others are doing. Stop following checklists and really think outside the box.
Cool. Hold on. All right, there we go. Cool. That was Steve Wiedemann. He's heads up SEO for Applebee's. So super clever guy. Anyway, now let's talk tactics. 22 tips to grow your organic traffic in 2022. I'm just going to get straight into it. There's going to be some, so I've got 36 minutes. There'll be some I'll spend a couple of minutes on. Some we might go a little bit longer. Some I'll just zoom through quickly. If you've got questions, I encourage you to put your hand up and ask it straight away, because if you've got a question about slide 20 and we're at slide 40, I've got to get my head back in that space. So please, feel free, throw a hand up. I'll try to answer the question quickly. If we need to move on, we can chat about it afterwards. Cool? Deal? Excellent. Okay. Now, just to set the table, this is kind of beginner to intermediate level tips. So I did qualify that earlier. We don't have anyone actually practicing SEO in here, so it shouldn't be anything that you look at and go, duh. Like, this is stuff which hopefully you find quite useful. Now, the tips presented here are broadly applicable. There is a bit of a slant to e-commerce websites because as an agency, we do a lot in the e-commerce space. But what I've done is I've tried to add some non-e-commerce tips to balance it out as we make our way through. But quite often, the e-commerce stuff you can pretty easily replicate for a service or non-e-commerce based business. Now, when we talk about e-commerce, how many people in here have a retail business? Because I don't know how long to spend on this. E-commerce transacting online. Is there anyone in here? Because I can zoom past quicker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to go quickly on this then. E-commerce, two types of sites. We consider them a spec-based or a specification-based site or a design-based site. The difference between a spec-based site focuses on products. Quick example, if it's a fashion retail store or if it's a computer hardware store, there will be quite substantial search volume around a specific model of hardware or IT or some kind of tech product or a specific type of dress or shoes or that sort of thing. So where there is more spec-based items on the site, then you focus your SEO more around products. Where it's a design-based site, is focused more on categories as opposed to specific products. So for the 5 people in the room that are more retail e-commerce based, you can come and talk to me afterwards. I can explain in a bit more detail. For everyone else, crawl budget is relevant for everyone. It's basically just the number of pages that the Google bot will crawl and index on your site within a given time frame. Has anyone not heard that phrase before? Everyone? Do I need to go into any more detail on crawl budgets? I'm happy to. You can ask me afterwards. It's fine. Anyway, because I'll mention it a couple of times through these tips. Cool. Let's go. Firstly, for e-commerce, prevent product page duplication by ensuring that the product variants canonicalize, I got it right first time, to the base product URL. Now, for service-based businesses, this could actually be the same thing. Basically, what we're talking about is if you have a particular, over here the example is a dress. It's a black dress on Nordstrom. That black dress also comes in blue, pink, orange, lavender, etc., etc. You do not want the canonical, the URL, which is getting crawled and indexed by Google, to have crawl budget wasted on all those individual items. So you will choose the base, either black dress or either midi dress, or you might choose, or you might have a plugin or a software that chooses the product which your site is lower on stock or more on stock that you want to get rid of. So it automatically does that. Again, I can see a few quizzed faces, but there's only 5 ecom people here, so you can just ask me afterwards and I'll fill you in a bit more detail. For non-ecom, the kind of, the relevant tip for you guys is to, content duplication on blog pages. So this is a big issue. What you need to look for is to make sure that, no more than 30% of your current content is duplicated from external sources. We use Copyscape. So I'd recommend looking that up to make sure that your blog pages particularly aren't just borrowing content from other sites, rewriting it to a point where it's over 30% not original content. Tip 2, prevent thin content. So you want to add at least 200 to 300 words of content on category pages. So this is potentially more specific to retail e-com, but for other businesses where you've got a service, a particular service, I know what we always worry about, and especially your dev team and your UX team and your UI team are worried about, I don't want big blocks of text just because the SEO team wants me to put it in there so we can rank for them. So you want to use things like those read more, show more, the Arcadian thing. Has everyone seen those on the site? A little bit of text, read more, boom, click that, the rest of it shows up. So then when they're opening it up on mobile, it doesn't wreck the experience. You'll still get nice engagement. If they choose to click on it, they can read more. If they don't, guess what? Google still crawls it and indexes it and ranks it. So it's a good way of meeting Google's needs, but also meeting your user needs for your site. There's an example there. I'm not sure if you can see it. Down there, it's just cut off, but there's basically a read more just there at the bottom. For non-ecom, a tip would be to perform a landing page content audit of the top 3 ranking sites for a particular keyword. So let's, hands up, show of hands again, who's got SEO in their remit? That was lots of people. Who wants to put their hand up? Yes, cool, thanks. What's one particular keyword that your site likes to rank for? Oh, actually, sorry, we need that. I forgot to do the, hey, catchball, orange shirts, guys, can we just pop that over here? Thank you. Just so that people watching at home can hear. Okay, so this is one keyword that your site would like to rank for. Bacon. Can you say that again into that? Is that on? No? Okay. So that means they're hearing it there. He said bacon, for those that potentially couldn't hear. So what we're saying is, you would want to, if you want to rank for that, have a look at the top 3 sites that are ranking for that at the moment, and just literally do an audit. Google's telling you what it wants to see, how much content, that sort of thing. So then you can use that as the minimum word count to aim for your page. Quite often we overcomplicate things and we try to use all sorts of different, plugins and different programs and aggregators. When Google's given you the answers for what's ranking, you can go there and just get a sense yourself. Tip 3, e-com specific, just going deeper into categorization. Quick example I'll use for you. We've got one here, but we have a fitness brand that we work with who sell cardio fitness and weight fitness. What they didn't have in their site was a whole range of different categories that have big, substantial search volume. So things like, cables and benches and all sorts of things. They just had it all under weights. So fleshing that out into the different category pages is going to give us a whole heap more search volume to try to target. Same thing though for non-ecom businesses. So we've got a client who offers asset management. They had one asset management page on their site which had everything in it, but we've been able to flesh that out into asset planning, asset forecasting, asset procurement, etc. So just giving yourself an opportunity to rank for a range of different search volume, objective-oriented pages with their own keywords. And an example there of fleshing out. Fashion's always an easy one with the fleshing out because there's so much search volume around random, yellow dress, party dress, etc. Cool. Tip 4, core web vitals. It was touched on a couple of times yesterday. Basically, Google last year told everyone that they were going to start using core web vitals, which is page speed experience, as a ranking factor. So it's pretty easy. You can actually just use page speed insights, plug your site in. It's a free Google tool. Plug your site in, see if you pass or fail. If you fail, ask your SEO agency or ask your SEO team, are they looking at this? Are they across this? Why are we failing? Google said this is a ranking factor. Doesn't mean it's necessarily the only or the most important ranking factor, but it is a factor. Mobile page speed, back on user experience again, you can use that page speed experience plugin as well. Page speed insights, I should say. So again, plug in a page, plug in your site, share it with your SEO team, they'll love you. Deep dive into your Google Search Console. Does anyone here actually get into Google Search Console? This is probably more what you're practicing. Yes? Okay, we do have a few people who do. Okay, excellent. Look, there's 3 major things that can be known via GSC. The first is that split of brand and non-brand. So we can know how much work is being done to acquire people who don't know who your brand is. And how much work is being done, which we can probably attribute to social or PR or what other brand building activities, conferences like DigiMarcon. It's a really important dashboard to look at. So you get a feel for, okay, our non-branded is going up. Great, all that stuff's working. Our branded is going up, but our non-branded is flat or it's going down. What's happening there? Haven't we got an SEO team or an SEO agency working on trying to get us ranked for stuff that's not our brand? I'd be jumping in there regularly. It also gives you a really good highlight of technical issues in your site under its coverage section. So I'd highly recommend jumping in there, looking at that. And lastly, if a new landing page has been launched and you want it to get indexed, you can submit that via the URL inspection tool in GSC. So if you've got a particular service which is timely or topical, that's something, if you've built that landing page, if you actually want it crawled, jump into Google Search Console, make sure you enter it in there so Google does index it. 7, create high quality internal filters to make it really easy for audiences. That's important. So that's things like potentially, whether it's serviced or e-com based, it's just making sure that you've got some kind of good search function, but you need to make sure that those filter pages, so those pages where you go, I want to search for, let's go back to the asset management. I want to search for investment property asset management. And it comes up with a search page with all the pages within that site that have stuff relevant to that. The URL there is going to have question marks and all sorts of weird stuff in it. You guys seen that URL? So you do not want to waste crawl budget on Google indexing that URL. You want Google indexing the asset pages, the home page, the actual pages which are more commercially relevant for you. So make sure that the filter pages are not canonicalized. It's an example there. You can't see the URL, but if we did click on most popular, that page would pop up and there'd be all sorts of question marks and the like, which we don't want Google to waste crawl budget on. Go for it.
Just want to make sure
Canonicalized means that will be the one that will be indexed. Yes, correct. Thank you. So, yes. Tip 8, ensure that low value pages, again, are not indexed. This is basically the same tip again. But if you've got like blog tags where you've got articles and there's tags on them, you do not want those URLs to be indexed. You want the blog with those topics and those keywords, yes. The original URL, yes. But not those tags, because no one's searching for those tags. It looks weird. You're wasting budget. Something which will help with this is to make sure that you templatize your meta titles and your description for product pages or service pages. If you've got a range of different services, they don't have to be an e-commerce product, but any type of product that you sell, you want to make sure that you've templatized the way that that's written out. It's going to save you time, but also it just means that it's really clear and you're not going to have any gaps for any certain pages. You know exactly what needs to be in there and you just templatize it. Tip 10, make the product pages more information rich. Again, this doesn't necessarily mean an e-commerce product, just whatever you've got. So in-depth third-party testimonials. We spoke about this yesterday. Someone spoke about, things like FAQs, pros and cons, how-to guides and videos. That's beautiful, rich content. That's not just wordy content that the SEO team and some of the content teams write to get into. It's actual stuff that is useful for potential customers to get in touch. So have a think about your service pages. Have a think about what you can get in there to really enrich those. Also gives you an opportunity to get those featured snippets potentially, where Google does that search and then there's something that matches the query exactly, and Google grabs a slab of content from your site and does a featured snippet on the search page. The click-through rate on those is huge. Here is an example of just product-rich information. This is an e-com example, but it's relevant for all sites. This one's a bit more e-com specific. Make sure that the product pages have a rating and review option, along with a product schema so that they can actually be visible on the SERP for those featured snippets for better click-through rate. Reviews. For non-income, non-e-com, same, just a little bit different. There's certain structured data and schema that you can use to get better CTR. So if a landing page is promoting a certain event, like a Digimarcon event, for example, or any type of event or webinar that you're running, event schema could be used. You could use recipe schema for a recipe blog page. So again, it's just making sure that you're giving yourself that rich information for snippets. Who here is doing this? Use Google Ads to test user intent. Does anyone do that like agile and actually have your ads teams and your organic teams working together? This is something which is crucial. So if you think about it, right, SEO, you want to rank for something. How long is it going to take you to rank for a highly competitive keyword? I mean, it's like how long is a piece of string, but are you going to rank for it tomorrow? No? Next week? No? 3 months? 6 months? Maybe? 12 months? Probably? A long time. What if your gut on that keyword that you think is going to be a game changer for your business, you get there in 12 months' time, you get all this traffic coming through, none of them want to buy. It's a different intent. You thought, well, all our competitors are ranking for that. Surely it's delivering good traffic. We had a client we had a building client who was ranking for some really highly competitive building search terms, renovation, knockdown, rebuild, etc. Ton of traffic coming through. None of it converted. None of it was localized. It just was terrible traffic. If you use Google Ads, if you want to show for a particular term, pop it in your ads, bid on it, boom, traffic tomorrow. Or how long ever it takes to get it live. That traffic comes in 1-2 months. You can start to measure, is it actually converting? Yes. No. If it's converting, is it converting into customers? Like, you can give yourself a really good understanding of whether that intent is what you think it is. And if it is, cool. Ads team, speak to the SEO team. Guys, this keyword works. Customers actually use this keyword. They're getting in touch, but it's costing us $30 a click. So it might be handy for us to put this into our SEO plan and start ranking for it organically. Make sense? You need to have your ads and your search teams working together, and your organic teams, I should say. URLs are case sensitive. Now, this is more an issue for who's got a site, who works for a business with a site that's like 10 plus years old? Do we have many? No. Okay, so it's probably not so relevant for you guys. There's lots of really old legacy sites with lots of old URLs that have got slashes, and some have got slashes, some don't have slashes. URLs are case sensitive, all that sort of stuff. Not so relevant for you guys. We'll move on. Limit title tags to 55 to 60 characters so that Google doesn't cut them off. So when your site, you've done all that work to get shown on the SERP, boom, shows up, the description of what that page is about comes up. If it's longer than 60 characters, it's going to cut off that description. The user goes, oh, maybe it's what I want. I don't know. Next one down, nice and clear, 55 characters, answers exactly what they want, boom, I'll click there. Just an example there. 55 to 60 characters. This is the sort of thing your team can do a pretty quick audit on your main pages and figure out, okay, what's happening there. Tip 15. Segment your keyword research. So anyone who's in SEMrush regularly will, or anyone who's been around SEO, will know these 4 types of keywords in terms of intent. Informational. navigational, commercial, transactional. What's important is understanding for your industry, what is a good mix? And then knowing that, have a look at our own keywords and how do we sit? And we're matching what is going to work in our industry. I've got an example there for ecom, which is obviously much more, impulsive, fast buy. So it skews much more towards commercial and transactional. 70% of your keywords getting indexed and ranked would like to be some kind of transactional type keyword or commercial. For a, let's say property investment or insurance or anything that's, a longer decision potentially, what do you think? More commercial, transactional? Who here has got a business with a long buy cycle? Show of hand. Okay, cool. I'm sorry, what's your name? Yes. Chelsea. How long's your buy cycle? Oh, sorry. Wait for the mic. I'm sorry. I should have told you that. Yes.
Good question. It could be anywhere from 4 months to a full year.
4 months to 12 months. Okay, cool. What do you need to do? Or let me rephrase that. How does a potential customer make a decision to go with you guys? 4 to 12 months, what are the sorts of things that you guys or your website could do to make that decision easier?
Education
Yep.
on the risks for
Yep.
that particular individual.
Yep.
Updated content
Yep.
that it's consistent. Guides
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
Probably some of the couple things on the top of my head.
They're great.
Okay.
All informational, right? The longer the buy sales cycle, the more informational you're going to need to convince them. It's a big decision. Thank you, Chelsea. It's a big decision for some products. The bigger the decision, the more informational. So look at that skew of the ideal formula for your site, then look at your site and see if it matches it. You might see straight away, wow, we've got a 12-month sales cycle and we've only got 10% of the content on our site is informational. It's a wasted opportunity to use your site to educate and to get people further along that buying decision so then Chelsea can close them. Cool. Oh, I think we've got a video relevant to that.
What's the number one biggest challenge that you think SEOs face in 2022?
That they're not content writers, or they're not very good at content sometimes. And it's becoming a little bit more siloed. Maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like there's this now like Moses has come and the sea has split and tech SEOs are on one side and content SEOs now on the other side. And if they could throw spears at each other and kill each other, they would. But you can't do that in public.
Cool. That was Morty Overstein. When we interviewed him, he was the head of SEO communication at SEMrush. He's now the head of SEO at Wix. Super clever dude. But in terms of relevance to that, content, super important. If you've got, a technical team who are telling you that you need to have, 20, 25, 30, 40% of your content informational, they need to be able to communicate that to your content team in a way that's not those two silos battling against each other, which we've all seen. So again, back to those soft skills. 404s, optimize them, have some fun. Make sure you're not using it as a wasted, make sure it's not a wasted opportunity. If someone's landed on a 404 page, try to get them to stay on the site. They might purchase something, they might see a link to a page which is similar. Feel free, if it works within your brand tone of voice, to have some fun with it, to keep them engaged. The last thing you want is for that page to just have no calls to action, have nothing to make them stick. Backlinks, we've spoken about a bit yesterday and today. They're great. They're going to do amazing things for your site if they're quality, relevant referrals or votes for your site. Internal links, though, are hugely underrated. So if you think about, a lot of sites will have most of their domain authority in their homepage. But their most important transactional pages or lead generation pages or informational pages are further away from that homepage with a lower page authority. Internal links that link to your stronger pages are going to help build authority in those other pages, which then builds a domain authority for the whole site. So if you think about page authority and domain authority, quite often what you'll see is domain authority really high, page authority for the really important page is really low. Not great, because then you just got to hope that they get to your homepage and they find their way to those. So internal links are really, really important. You want to make sure that they're connected to your stronger pages. They're passing SEO juice through, so then they can start ranking. They can lift the domain authority for the whole site. This is just an example of when internal links were added to a site and the bounce in traffic that happened afterwards. Step 18. I've already touched on this actually. Step outside the tools, SEMrush, Ahrefs. We all love these tools. SEOs love a new plugin. Oh my God, have you seen this plugin? It does this. They all grab information from the same place. But Google, we overcomplicate it. Google's already telling you the answers. It's the most incredible machine the world's ever known. Like, obviously I'm an SEO nerd. But it's already telling you what is ranking. And if you audit those pages, you'll see why they're ranking. And then your team can go, okay, cool, we can do that. We can do something a bit different. We can add some more rich content. There's things that we've seen with similar pages, which have worked really well. But go to Google, audit, come back with what's going to work. H1 tags, Google actually changed the way it serves results on the SERP, and it's actually grabbing from the H1s rather than the title. So have your H1s been updated since that change, or are you still showing the title? This is going to affect the click-through rate. It's not so much going to affect whether it ranks, but obliquely it will, because if people stop clicking through, it'll stop ranking. So have a look at your H1s. Have a professional SEO copywriter write your meta descriptions. This is 101 stuff, but there's lots of, just probably get touched on in the next one's on content marketing, probably get touched on a bit. There's lots of AI and tech platforms that are doing a lot of this content writing. Sometimes it works really well, sometimes not, but if you've got really important pages, you want to make sure you're getting that click-through rate, have your content team do the work. Embed products into your content strategy. Don't be salesy. 80% of all searches are informational. That's pretty straightforward. And we're there. Subscribe to SEO success stories. Bit of a cheeky plug for the podcast, but most of this content is from our internal team and then what I've learned from speaking to the best SEOs in the world. So I'd highly recommend subscribing to the podcast. You can find it on all of those places. Cool. Okay. I zoomed through a bit quicker than I thought I would, so I've got a bit more time for questions. But some hat tips. So these are the people who helped me with this presentation. Sam Aquana, one of our lead SEOs at my agency. Gabe Grossman, my co-host on the show. And then a range of other guests and different people, just really smart SEOs. If you're into SEO or you want to find out more, I'd suggest taking a photo of that, or you'll get this presentation afterwards. Find these people, follow them. Eli Schwartz especially has got that book, so I'll definitely look at buying that. Another video. And this is one from Gaetano Donati, just on the same question again. What do you think is the number one biggest challenge facing SEOs in 2021?
The answer, I think unquestionably for me, is insane levels of competition. So most verticals are saturated to the max level, and overcoming this is very tough. And most people don't go and join category-leading monster companies that are already at the top. Some people do, but many people, they join scrappier, more underdog type companies. And then you're faced with the problem of, damn, all these other bigger, badder, more powerful companies are dominating the top results for all the most important keywords. And where do we go from here? And I think that's the number one challenge.
Cool. Okay, so we've got actually a few minutes for questions. Cool, I've got a question for everyone. Who is like 100% happy, my SEO team, my SEO agency, whatever it is, in-house, the consultant we use, 10 out of 10, they're doing an amazing job, and I don't think we're missing any opportunities. Any hands up? 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 8? 9? That's good. That's really good. 7? 6? 6, okay. Is everyone familiar with Net Promoter Score? You know how those numbers 1 to 10 work? 1 to 6, 1 to 7 is negative. 8, neutral. 9, 10, promoter. So everyone here is basically saying, not 100% happy, quite a bit under, except for a couple of people. What are some of the biggest challenges? Why aren't you happy with them? Would anyone want to? I'm not here to sell. I'm just genuinely curious and see if I can help. Anyone want to put their hand up and say one thing that they just find challenging with their SEO team? Thought I saw a hand there, but I didn't. No? No. Yes, over here. Mic here, please.
I think it's just the obvious thing of time, just needing time to, and resources, right?
Yep. So do you mean time that you've got to give to the SEO team or time that they have to get all the work done?
Yeah, the latter, the time to get the work done, yeah.
Time to get the work done, cool. And are they, in terms of like prioritising like low-hanging fruit, short, mid-term, long-term goals, is that something that there is buy-in from upper management, or is that something that they're kind of constantly fighting for?
No, I think we're more in the planning phase, right? So we are identifying and then now working towards chipping away at those priorities.
Yeah. What's your business?
Consulting.
Consulting. Okay, cool. And what are you trying to rank for, just out of curiosity?
Management consulting, technology, talent. Those are the three core areas of business.
Yep.
And then going down from there. Yeah.
Okay.
So our competitors are the really big guys too, which is the last thing that they were talking about.
So who are your competitors? Deloitte, KPMG, EY, all those? Yep. Okay. Big challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how we talked about, categorization and sort of going into those sort of more sort of niche categories. Is that something which is part of your content strategy?
Yes.
Or are you going for those big sort of the big meaty keywords, or is it both?
Yeah, both. But I do think the niche area is a little bit easier for us to get into, actually.
Yep.
Really finding a small problem and focusing on that.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Cool. Does anyone else would like to share why they're not happy with the current SEO? Any challenges they're having with their SEO team or agency or consultant? No? Yeah? Go for a question would be great. Yeah. And any other questions as well, because we've still got 5 minutes to go.
So I'm just me and my marketing team.
Yep.
So you're seeing the whole marketing team here
Yes.
in my company. So my question will be more, because you gave us like a big list of tips, but if I want to, I'm actually building the new website. I'm working with a company that they're creating and designing and everything. So what would be, from the SEO perspective, like the top 3 most things that I should focus right now before I launch my new website and stuff like that, just rank and then move forward, because I don't have budget to hire an SEO copywriter or everything else. It's just me. So what should I focus on?
So did everyone catch that question? Yep, excellent. So if you're working with a web dev agency now on building the site, what's really important is that either they have or you give them some idea of the structure from an SEO best practice perspective. So what is the main keywords you need to rank for? What are the main categories that you need to be ranking for? What are the main products that you need to be ranking for? Understanding, when I say products, services, whatever it is that you deliver, understanding that you're not going to rank for them when the site gets built. You're potentially not going to rank for them for months, years, if ever. But if they don't get that structure down right from the start, when you do eventually have time to put more resources into SEO, someone's going to look at the structure of your site and they're going to go, wow, we really needed the URLs like this. We really needed the categories like this. We really needed the product pages to look more like this. And there's going to be a whole lot of extra expense and time to get that redone. So I don't know about top 3, but what I would be thinking about is, okay, who are the sites that I really need? This is probably the simplest way to do it. Who are the sites that I really am aspiring to get that same organic visibility? Choose 3, 4 of those sites. You'll see commonalities across those sites in terms of what the homepage looks like, what the category and the product pages look like. Have a look at the URLs. Have a look at the content. You're not going to rank for it at first, but you are going to give yourself a good foundation from the start, as opposed to, I've seen too many times where a dev agency, and I've worked both, I've worked dev agencies, I've worked SEO agency, the dev agency go and do an amazing job, it looks beautiful, it's incredible. Then they bring on an SEO agency who goes, none of that's going to rank. It's not built the right way, the sitemap is all over the place, Google will have no idea where anything is. We need your dev team to go back and put a whole heap more hours and investment in everything else, which is obviously money, a lot more money, but then a lot more time. That all of those pages need to start from the start again to start on that race towards ranking.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, of course. Thank
Excellent. Cool. Any other questions? SEO questions, search marketing, anything at all? Yes, over here. Mike here, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think what you said about communication being an issue and soft skills being important is totally on point. As not an SEO myself, but in more of like a managerial position.
Yeah.
And definitely dealing with those issues and dealing with issues of developing buy-in from other stakeholders within the company, within the team, that kind of stuff. Any tips there from like a sort of third, second party perspective? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. Quite often, are you new into this business or have you been there a while? New. Okay, cool. I'm just going to give you like a quick little summary. There's a book called The First 90 Days. I think it's called The First 90 Days. I'll find it. Find me afterwards and I'll get it for you. But basically, when you're first starting in a role and you're meeting all the different people who are stakeholders, people in your team, people in other teams, there's job titles that make things really obvious. Okay, well, that person looks after content. That person looks after that. That person looks after that. What you'll find, though, is there's a secondary tier of people who don't have a title who are actually got way more sway than that person. Finding those people is going to be the most important thing for building consensus. Because those people might have been in the organisation for 5-10 years longer than the head of a department. Those people might know people across a range of different departments. They've already got that network and their tentacles in a range of different departments already, but their title might be consultant or senior this rather than head of this. If you can find those people, and the only way you can find them is to get around and meet people and talk to people and ask, okay, so who made that decision or how does this work? Find those people. They will become the people who help you expedite your ability to build consensus within the organisation. Along with, the thing is, but you can't do it in a way, this is where it gets a bit political, you don't want to be sneaky and going around heads of and the like. You just need to understand, okay, it's almost like mapping out, like, if you think about like enterprise sales where you're mapping out your influences and you're thinking, okay, there's this person, connects to that person, this person over here. I'd be visually mapping it out and getting a sense of it and then trying to figure out how I can navigate that in a way which doesn't undermine anyone, but which gets the people, because what you'll find is quite often that person with the big title who's fully on board, then you try to get that budget to come through. There's a bottleneck somewhere that you just didn't anticipate because someone who's been in the business for 20 years with a smaller title has more sway than all of them. So find those people. That would be my biggest advice. Cool. And we're just about up against it. One more question if we've got time. Otherwise, I will hand over to our next presenter. I think we're good. Cool. Okay, so let's give a round of applause for Russ for his first presentation.